Thank you very much. And Senator, good morning to you.
Morning. Yeah.
Wanted to say that the National Drug and Alcohol Screening Association is very happy to support you for reelection. You certainly look at things from a very reasonable viewpoint, and we thank you for that. We do have two issues that I wanted to bring to your attention. Marijuana is a big issue across the country, and our association, our membership includes laboratories, drug testing providers, physicians, law enforcement, and others that touch the drug testing industry in any way. That's our membership across the country. And while our association is not taking a position on whether marijuana should be legalized or not legalized, because we don't want to get into that, we do have two particular issues that we've spoken to members of Congress, Majority Leader McConnell and you this morning. And one is when there is federal legislation proposed relating to marijuana to legalize it, such as the MORE Act that was running through the House last week and got canceled, that there always be a safety carve-out, as we call it, for the Department of Transportation to be able to continue to test airline pilots, train engineers, truck drivers for marijuana. A lot of the legislation that's making its way through the halls of Congress, including the MORE Act, is silent on that. And DOT is very concerned, as we in the industry is, and the public should be, that regardless of what you do to legalize it, that you should still be able to test for THC and marijuana in people that operate public transportation. And we would hope that if you have the opportunity to vote on any of those bills, that you would make sure that there's a safety carve-out in there.
I would not only be willing to do that, that's something I'd be willing to lead the effort on. So if it looks like that bill is going to move, I hope you'll get back in touch with my office and with Claire on my Transportation Appropriations Subcommittee staff, because I am very worried about that. Maine has legalized marijuana, which frankly I think was a mistake, but it was a state issue. But in a state that has an opioid crisis, I think the last thing we need is another drug out there, and one that is, as I understand it, has become increasingly potent compared to...
It's not your grandfather's marijuana anymore.
Exactly. And I'm very worried about driving impaired with marijuana, period, across the board, but particularly truck drivers in the areas airline pilots, the areas that you've talked about, railroads. So I would be delighted to lead the charge on that. I mean, absolutely, it's something I really am worried about.
Well, Senator, one of the things that's interesting is there's all this legislation to legalize it, but there's no test to determine impairment out there. So we always argue, why don't we get the science first before we legalize it and move forward? But, a lot of people, and then the second thing briefly is, overall, our association wants to ensure that employers can continue to drug test, that they can be a drug-free workplace. We're not saying people can't do what they want to do, but that employers should have a right to be a drug-free workplace. And a lot of the legislation that pops up, even on the federal level, has very subtly in it prohibitions to letting employers continue to drug test. So we would hope that if any of that legislation shows its face, you would certainly take a leadership role to let employers, small businesses, continue to say, we don't allow drugs in our place of business, and we can continue to drug test for it.
Absolutely. Completely agree with you. I do business tours all the time, and I particularly like going to machine shops or factories. And can you imagine someone who's impaired?
No?
I mean, that's just a workplace accident waiting to happen.
Absolutely.
And I completely agree with you. be glad to help on that.
Well, thank you,
So-
Senator.
And thank you for bringing it up, because I was not aware of that second issue at all.
Well, thank
So,
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question will come from Paul Dell with the American Maritime Officers Association.
Morning, Senator.
Good morning, Paul.
More comment